can't keep track of her schedule.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
So, our first item on the agenda is the minutes from February 13. I thought they looked pretty good. Does anybody have any comments or?
I have to close yours.
Yeah, no, it's all.
Oh, well, then I guess Hebe and Rich should, you were both there at last meeting, I
Yep.
think. Yeah, so let's have you vote on this. I'd accept a motion to
So moved.
accept the minutes. A second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. It's terrific, they're passed. The second item of discussion will be the curb cut regulations. And,
We have copies for everyone.
And Tim, I have, what you had written,
Yeah, I had written this out.
what you sent to me.
Right.
I put it in a Word doc and I gotta teach you how to send stuff other than
I
JPEGs
know, I
of
don't know
text.
how to, I have a
So-
couple bigger ones.
so, Tim and I met with Scott last week. And, I don't know that you really need to read those because we kind of came up with an outcome, which I can tell you what that was. But there were a couple of changes that we had looked at in our previous meeting. One of the items was item 6 on page 4, dealing with the grade. And the second was, and raised quite a bit of discussion, was on number 8, dealing with culverts, requiring culverts to be placed outside the road right of way. And that was something that was a focus of our discussion primarily with Scott. And he does, well, I think what he was trying to get across was he doesn't wanna see driveway culverts chewing into the roadway, which he sometimes sees contractors kinda excavating, and they're excavating into the road, and if anything, they're moving the drainage ditch closer to the road rather than further from the road. So he agrees that placing them outside the road right away is probably not something that would ever happen. So, you know, I think he is fine with just making sure that the placement, length, and diameter of culverts shall be as approved by him. And so we were just gonna strike everything, all the bold print there, culverts shall be placed outside the road right of way, and the road agent may waive this requirement at their discretion, so that would just go away. And what we would add in its place is placement, comma, length and diameter of culverts shall be as approved by the road agent. And we had a little bit of discussion there. I don't know, David, if you have any legal concerns on whether, I have concerns in terms of whether the town is actually determining the sizes of culverts, or whether they are just reviewing and approving the culverts, because I don't think we really should, the town should being responsible for determining the size. I mean, I think
I agree with that.
in many cases,
Well, Scott determines the size, so.
No, not even, I mean, that would be up to the landowner to determine the size.
Well,
If
but
we
the
were to make
problem-
it too small, or,
But I think though, I mean, I agree in a way, but I think the problem is if the landowner decides to put in too small a culvert and it backs up, then it's gonna damage the road.
yeah.
And that's why he has to
So,
approve
He
it.
should approve it.
he should
Right,
approve,
he
but
has to say-
he's not taking the liability, the town's not taking the
Not doing
liability
the
of sizing.
calculations of runoff and,
Yeah.
but
I
you're
think you
right.
need to make that clear to Scott then, that it's, he can say, if they wanna put in a 12-inch culvert and it needs a 16, that he can deny the permit because the culvert in his,
Judgment isn't big enough.
yeah.
Isn't-
I mean, I think we're in a kind of a fine line here where there are probably many out there that the property owner doesn't, I don't think that we're looking for the property owner to necessarily get an engineer on every single one. But I just think that,
And look, informally, if they come to Scotty and say,
well,
what do you think we
15
need, and he says, well, you probably need a 16, and then they do that, well,
Yeah,
they're
well,
still making the decision.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Scott says,
fine.
you know, we
Exactly.
need this size culvert, and that's what,
But he
But-
doesn't do any calculations or put it in writing or anything like that, it's.
no, it's just a verbal thing, yeah, he just
Exactly.
said, when they, yeah, cause he has purview over the culvert, so he just tells them what size they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that is on the curb cut, permit. You look at the last page,
Yeah.
it has a size,
Yeah, it does.
so that will need to be changed on
where is,
the,
where is?
That cross-section thing,
um,
size, distance from the road,
This is in our ordinance?
under the cross-sections that we were looking at last meeting.
Oh, the state
where-
ones?
Where the little blanks are, yeah.
Right, but that's not in our.
That's not in our-
Okay, but weren't we saying that we were gonna use one of those?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So the landowner comes and they says, I got this big, and Scotty says, no, it's gotta be this big. The landowner can go back and get an engineer to say, I mean, if they could just say, okay, fine. If they say, no, I really only want it to be this big, Scotty can say, you gotta show me, you know, an engineer has to tell me that this is gonna be okay.
Right.
I mean, that, and I think that's sufficiently unlikely to happen,
Yeah,
that, I mean, if an engineer signs off on it, then,
When you're
Well,
building
and
a
the road
road,
blows
a
out.
culvert is
Right.
budget dust.
And 9 out of 10 times, it's not the landowner, it's not it's the person that's putting the culvert in. And they know, and they work with Scott, and they just say, this is what we need, and the landowner doesn't care, I mean, you know. it's
well,
whatever.
yes, of course, it's the excavator or whoever's putting it in,
Right.
but the landowner's representative, they're coming to Scotty and saying, so this is what we wanna do.
Right.
So, I am content to let the road agent approve it.
yeah. So this is what the permit, what is currently on the permit itself.
Oh,
oh,
And that's to be completed by road agent and planning board representative, so.
Right.
Somehow they need to communicate to the property owner that it's their responsibility to have a determination of that culvert size. And then that this is not, and length,
And what?
because
Oh,
you wanna,
right, right.
Well, the regs say they have to be at least 12 inches.
right.
Which is generally too small for these
Right,
days. yeah.
right.
so it just, we'll have to update the permit to, be very clear that,
Or do we add do we have part of this section is to be filled out by the town, part of it is to be filled out by the applicant?
yeah, that, if we go back up to the applicant,
So, Rich, just to be clear.
portion, you can, put in extra,
You could put in the culvert diameter up
culvert
there.
diameter, length, or none, if there's a case where
Yeah.
it's not needed.
Right, but just to be clear, so are you saying that Scott could get in trouble for specifying the size of the culvert?
I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think the town wants to take on the liability of sizing people's driveway culverts. If-
Absolutely, if the town were to be making that decision, and it turns out to be wrong, and it causes damage to the property owner, then they could come back and say, well, you told me I had to do it this size, and now look, my basement flooded, because the culvert was too small, and it backed up into my yard and flooded my basement.
right, so
Yeah,
the
so-
homeowner comes and says, I wanna put in a bumpty bump inch culvert, If Scotty said, well, that sounds fine to me, done, it's fine. The homeowner said, this is what I want. Scotty said, this is not a flagrant, crazy idea. And so it's done. If it turns out to be too small, it's the homeowner that said, I want this size culvert. If the
Yeah,
town-
Scotty's approval just indicates that he doesn't, that it doesn't, the size they've selected doesn't pose a problem from a road perspective. It doesn't say this is the
No
right
immediately
size or,
obvious problem,
yeah.
yeah.
I guess, yeah, I mean.
And Scott's
one of
gonna be
1,000
looking at
could
the
have-
culverts up and down the road and,
Mhm.
you know,
Looking at how
and
much
using his
drainage
best
is coming in.
judgment if he's talking informally, but hopefully if he's at the bottom of a steep hill and there's known to be a lot of water there.
Yeah, and
you know,
somebody
he
should talk
may
to
at
Scotty and
some time-
say, if someone asks you what size, your response ought to begin with, well, it should be at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, yeah, other than that, the town doesn't wanna take on,
Cause he'll say, if it's at least this much, then, yeah. And
And he can also deny the permit if he feel, you know, so he's trying to go the cheapest route, is a 12-inch culvert at the bottom of a steep hill that has a lot of water coming down it, that he knows needs an 18-inch culvert. He can deny the permit
Right.
and say that he denied it because he felt the culvert was of insufficient size.
right.
I'm completely comfortable giving him that judgment.
so.
Yeah,
So I think, Tim, what I'm suggesting is, and then we did get into some discussions about, you know, the negative 3% and, you know, should it be more, should it be less, should it be 20 feet, should it be the distance? And it just seemed like we were getting way into the weeds there, and it should be negative 3%, and we don't get into the greater, lesser, or whatever, just say it shall be 3%, the first 20 feet, and then if there gets to be an issue where that doesn't make sense, he could certainly waive part of it, but at least it's something manageable that is not asking more questions rather than solving.
Anything about the next 10 feet?
And then the grade for the next 10 feet, we were thinking just leaving it at 8. The difference between 7 and 8 is insignificant, and 8 is
Hard to
what,
measure in the field.
yeah,
yeah,
for 10 feet, yeah. So if we kept that first paragraph 6 in bold, the only change I would
Chair, I can bring that up.
make is on the last sentence. Of number 6.
Right.
And so I would just change that to say the object of this standard, is to prevent stormwater damage to the town road from the proposed access way.
don't we have that?
Well,
The opposite,
the sandwich, the language in there was a little bit, I think it is kind of funky the way it's written right now.
You wanna change the to this.
To this.
No,
The wrong one.
no, in front of
The
the standard.
standard.
This standard. Yep.
Is to prevent damage from,
Is
Prevent stormwater from.
stormwater damage to the town road from the insert proposed access way.
damage to the town road. Right. From
And
the
then-
proposed access way?
Yes,
Yeah. That's good.
just wondering what people think of that.
That's fine.
And take away.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then we won't have the sentence about placement length and diameter, should be determined by the road agent.
That is gonna go into number 8.
Well, diameter should be taken out, so just placement and then.
Well, no, we're gonna leave it because he's gonna approve it, but he's not determining it. There's a fine line there.
Right.
Well, this says placement, length, and diameter of the culvert shall be determined by the road agent.
Yeah, we're saying, I'm changing it shall be approved by the
Oh,
road agent.
okay.
Right.
Placement, length, and diameter.
Mhm.
Shall be approved by the road agent. So that's the last sentence. Or you said 8, and put
Yeah.
8 instead.
That's the last sentence, right?
Typing as a spectator sport.
Yeah, well, you can't, we'll never get it right the first time.
Also, I doubt you typically type with your hands all the way out like this.
I hunt and peck anyway, so you would think after 30 years of working with computers, I would type a lot better than I do, but
Maybe speaking, there you go. It was interesting, culverts have to be plastic now.
What?
That's what it said on the application. That's just because metal ones rust out after.
yep. And concrete ones deteriorate.
What are the plastic ones leaching?
The plastic ones, I think, are cheaper.
But they also have to be installed differently than metal ones.
They float.
Well, they are, they rely, the plastic ones don't have as much resistance to compression as the metal ones. So what you have to do is on either side, you have to compact the soil as you go along, build it up. And then what happens is when the pipe compresses, it pushes against that compacted soil, and it can't. But if you don't compact that soil, you will crush the.
Smush flat.
Yep,
And then you don't have the diameter that you thought you had.
no,
So the application also has different numbers than we're writing
yeah,
here.
once we get this done, I will rewrite the application and get that.
Just making sure everybody's connecting the dots.
Yep,
So.
I just didn't wanna keep
Oh, God, no,
changing
God, no.
until we get
I know.
the language all set.
So are we all okay with this? Do we need to take?
Freddy's okay, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Is Scotty okay?
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah,
We could
he was
certainly give
fine.
it back to him with the final edits, but
yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing he doesn't really know about probably is this whole thing we're talking about where he can't specify, you know. And we'll have to explain that to him.
I'm happy to do that if you guys want me to.
that'd be great. Will he be, yeah, he's your
Just,
boss.
you know, kind of framing it in that this protects the town,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of line.
Right, because in the past, when he and
Not that
I,
he's not able to do that.
when he and I have done the driveways, he just writes in there, you know, the diameter of the
Right.
culvert, it's all
Right.
done.
But he is, you know, if he understands that it's protecting him and the town from future suits, then I think he's gonna be fine with it. And the fact that he can deny the permit.
Right, and he still has to say, he can still say what he thinks the size
Yeah.
should be, so.
Yeah,
They can either listen to him or not. And he can deny it if he wants to.
yeah. When they come back and say, well, I want to put 3 4-inch pipes in, that's the same as a 12-inch.
Right.
Good, so what do we need to do with this next, David? You've got, there's the application, so you're gonna just
Yeah, I will-
revise that?
Yeah, I'll
and bring
revise
this
the
whole thing
application, I'll
back to us?
revise this, send it back out to everyone,
Okay,
and then we'll schedule a public hearing.
oh,
And
okay,
have to have a public hearing, you noticed, public
Yeah.
hearing,
okay.
and Scott will probably be the only person showing up, but, and then the board, once the public hearing, you can adopt, at the end of the public hearing, once it's closed, you would vote to adopt the new
Okay,
regulations.
and you'll leave this in bold so that
Yep.
Scott and everybody at the public
Yep.
hearing knows what we've changed?
Yep.
Okay.
And then, David, when it's all done, we'll just get new copies for Scott and me and, you know,
Right.
the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll-
And then we can get rid of the old stuff, yeah.
Yeah, there aren't that many, you know, I'll put it up on the website.
Yeah.
and-
That's the most important.
yeah.
So this is cool. We will have revised this 20 years after it was adopted.
Yeah.
God, we are doing great business here. Okay.
Revolutionary.
Yeah. Master plan housing chapter discussions.
I sent out, this evening, Rich's summary and Matt Niles' summary.
Yep.
And then, did everybody get my summaries for Renee Thiel of Lake Centipede from last time? And then Tim had done the Jonah Richards comments. So,
I don't think I got yours. 'Cause I want to stay here.
oh, here, I'll
They're
give you,
stapled together.
I actually have an extra
I
copy
got
of mine
that
somewhere.
today.
Did you get, when I passed on, or no, you may not have been here last week, so.
No, I wasn't here, so that's
I
why.
wasn't here, but I
So-
thought
I was in my surgery.
I had an extra copy. Oh, here we go. You got that.
Okay, great.
So should we just kind of go through them in the order that they presented? I think Renee was the first one. Is that right? October 10th. So I had put these in bullet form, and Tim also did that, and Nat's are sort of in bullet form, but with a narrative. Any additions, subtractions, corrections?
All these things look correct. Didn't we ask for, like, what other towns are doing?
We may have,
And that was the only other thing that I thought that,
I reviewed the whole tape, and
Yeah,
that
so-
didn't,
that didn't come out.
at least,
All right.
or when I was reviewing it, it didn't come
Yep,
out.
Yep, yep, okay, well, it's good to have all of these demographics here.
So this doesn't mean that we can't come
No,
back
yeah,
to
oh,
them
yeah, you have the
if
Wilmot
people
thing.
wanna take another look at
No,
them,
no,
certainly,
no,
but.
no, you do have the Wilmot thing in, because that was like what we, I think that was brought up as a way, what some other town our size is doing.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I
that,
can't.
so you do have it, it's 15E, you put it in.
I don't have a sense as to what that is, what Wilmot is doing.
Well, conservation subdivision ordinance allows like, smaller lot sizes for the homes and, you know, the economic, or the environmentally significant lands would be jointly owned or given to a land trust or something.
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what they did up on Whipple Hill, Culver Hill Lane? There's conservation, shared conservation land up on the top there, isn't there?
Where?
Where Nat lives.
Yeah, things I know,
Really?
out on Grafton Turnpike with the little subdivision there.
Trolley subdivision.
Trolley subdivision,
Yeah,
there
that-
is a big lot that is jointly owned by
Hmm.
all of the property owners out behind all the lots.
And Record Ridge had done the same thing, right?
Right, and I think you're right that Culver Hill, yes, Culver Hill is is the lower down, and Clover Mill is higher.
Yeah.
And that subdivision does in fact have a whole bunch of conservation land.
Yeah, I think so, Rich. When Rusty Estes was doing that,
Yeah,
We specified, yeah, I
You paid
remember,
attention
vague
to that, yeah.
recollection. So Vicky, you were there too.
I was there too, yeah.
We
counting
had, we
dots.
specified that he had
Lane.
to put certain land in, protect certain land.
Mhm.
You know, he had so many lots and the rest of it had to be, but I don't know how that works exactly.
Well, that was a negotiation, and I think that Trolley subdivision was a, you know, somebody, you know, the developer saying, I'm gonna give the town this conservation land, even though it's got no development value anyway, or, I mean, it does have natural resource value, but it's, for habitat, but that's about it. So this conservation subdivision would actually specify kind of a formula, you know, how small could the lots get, and what's the percentage, or, you know, something about which land is conserved.
Like Record Ridge Farm, that's what the houses up in there, they all share that 40-acre field down in front, right off East Thetford Road.
But I think, well, when Lyme Hill and Valley Association did that,
Mm.
I believe the land is with the Upper Bay Land Trust. I think they hold the easement.
Is
on
that
the-
not what a conservation subdivision kind of does? You then,
Well, some of them are just, aren't held by an organization like that, they're just held by the town, which.
could be, or,
Isn't gonna
but
hold
could
up.
be held by a
Oh, yeah, it could be.
conservation.
Yeah, and I
so-
think the upper, yeah,
So,
Yeah.
or, you're not disagreeing with me?
no.
Yeah, it just, I don't
Okay.
know that that followed any specific formula, like that was.
Well, that was probably before there was zoning too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was
So-
like late 80s.
Yeah, well, see, what Lyme Hill and Valley did was they bought land, and then they divided it up into X number of lots
Mhm.
to get their money back. But then they restrict that was the only, the total number of lots that could be there. In other words, that was it, that couldn't ever be subdivided again. So however they did that, yeah, I think, yeah, maybe the Upper Bay Land Trust holds it, the easement, and they just, so nothing can be subdivided again.
I thought from the Tostasons that they actually owned an interest in the land, but maybe not.
Yeah.
I think they own, I think, yes, the land may be jointly owned by the owners of all the property in the subdivision, but the Upper Valley Land Trust holds the easement.
Right, that could be the way it is, yeah.
So the question I have is, how is that different from what's on the books in Lyme today? When Rockland Lodge came in here and they wanted to do.
with lot
that, so-
averaging,
Was that tied into lot size averaging, and so if that happens, then 70% of the land that isn't used has to get put into some sort of an easement? Is that?
right,
I
well,
think lot size averaging might have been involved.
well, lot averaging though is not done by easement, it's
Mhm.
usually done just by, we had these zoning restrictions,
Right,
which we don't do anymore. So I don't know, now is it now do we require conservation easements?
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I don't,
all right.
I don't
I'll
know,
look that up.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of averaging. I mean, it's a way to allow density, I mean, it's the same amount of density, but it's, people who buy the property end up owning less, which presumably would be less expensive, but not really if it's the parent lot is being conserved, I mean, that cost gets passed along
Anyway,
anyway.
So,
you know,
yeah, it's basically you, let's say you allow 4 1-acre lots in 5-acre zoning. So you have basically 16 acres that you have reduced the lots sizes by. So you take 16 acres and set that aside, and it would be under a zoning easement or a permanent conservation easement approved by the planning board or to the town. Which,
and that was lot size averaging.
yeah, that's lots of,
Specific,
page
okay.
39.
Yep, okay.
So David, who holds the easement?
It says, according to this, it's through a zoning easement, which would be something the town would monitor.
Yeah.
So the town is the easement holder?
Yeah.
Well, yes, because it's a zoning easement. A permanent conservation easement granted to a conservation organization, which would be like the Upper Valley Land Trust,
Okay,
Right.
that's approved by the planning board, or to the town of Lyme, is
Oh,
what it
okay.
says, so it would be a conservation easement.
sure.
Right, and then the town would have to defend it in court, spend the money to defend it
If
down
the
the
town
road.
holds the
When-
To enforce the easement if someone
enforce
tries to
the
do
easement,
something,
yeah.
yeah.
What is the advantage to doing that for the person developing the lots?
Well, in a situation, I remember like, John Wayne up on, Whipple Hill, he just wanted to create a small lot for his son and not cut up the land, so, he was able to pass on a smaller piece of property to his son. And I remember some of the frontage was restricted from, using this zoning easement, and, yeah,
So would be a modification to this to encourage it, might be to allow more houses, more lots than would normally be, because at the moment, it's like you have 15 acres, you could do 3 5-acre lots. Or you could do 3 1-acre lots and give 12 acres to an easement. But if you,
Right, you
Right.
have smaller,
Okay.
have smaller.
right, but what if you could instead do 4 instead of 3?
yeah, the lot size averaging is different on the than a conservation
Yeah, I'm talking about-
subdivision, because there's gotta be some conservation value to the land that's set aside. And so it's not just any old property gets, gets not developed.
Yeah, in other words, it could be the side of a hill that you couldn't develop anyway.
It might have conservation value. I mean, so say it's a denning site or something, so it has to have like bona fide conservation value, not just be.
Do you think there's any property in the town of Lyme that doesn't have conservation value?
Probably, but,
I don't,
But-
at least under the tax rules,
uh-huh.
it seems unlikely to me that there is.
Brett Ryan's sand pit.
I'm not sure that the soccer field at Cross River
Maybe.
Academy has a lot of,
Right, yeah. So-
No, from a conservation easement perspective, it certainly does.
it's an old leach field,
Well, it's an old gravel pit.
It's no gravel pits.
it's an old gravel pit. Well, the gravel pit was further in, but there was a mobile home, there's an old well.
Oh, you're saying, that's, yeah, the gravel pit is where the solar panels and that, down where the,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm talking about behind Shoe Strap.
yeah,
Hmm.
near the old town dump.
It used to be called Jump Road.
So, shall we move on to the next
Oh, yeah, yeah,
set of?
yeah, we kinda went down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
there, but.
Well, I think it increases our understanding of where electric
Yeah.
points might be, so I'm happy we had the discussion.
So was the next one Sandwich, I think? Susan McLean, McLeod? That was October
Yeah, I
24th.
think that's right. That was Matt's.
So he's got some bullet points and then he's got a narrative after that. I thought it was all good stuff.
Yeah,
Maybe he looked up some of this stuff, because I didn't recall this actual specific size of the ADUs, that they allow 1,000 square foot ADU.
Where-
This was on the 3rd page in, or the 2nd page of the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it says it was recommended to allow
Yeah, it was,
EDs to make,
so maybe they haven't gotten there yet, I don't know.
yeah, cause, yeah, maybe she was just saying that.
well, they passed 10
10 ordinance.
ordinances. I didn't look up I looked up the text at the time, and I don't remember what they were, but there were 10 specific things that were at town meeting last year, and
Yeah.
they all passed.
So it's kind of interesting, I found it interesting because I didn't pick up on it or don't recall, but they allow 1,000 square feet or 50% of the footprint of the main dwelling, whichever is larger, with a potential cap of 1,500 square feet. That's a pretty darn big footprint. A 3,000 square foot footprint, I guess, is a pretty big footprint.
Wait,
Well, it would
what
be
are you saying,
maximum,
3,000?
maximum of 1,500, right?
Well, they cap it at 50% or a maximum of 1,500 square feet.
Right. Oh, I see, so if the
50,
main
50,
unit were
50,
3,000.
If it was 3,000, that's how
Yeah.
I'm reading this.
Right.
That's what I
I
think
mean,
it says.
yes, 3,000 is pretty large, but,
If it's a barn, I suppose,
yeah.
can you do ADUs on a barn?
Well,
Detached, maybe?
I wouldn't recommend it. No, I'd recommend they do a conversion, and then they don't have to limit their
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
So, Rich, you're saying 3,000 square, you mean the footprint is 1,500?
The footprint of the main house would be 3,000 feet in order to get an ADU of 1,500 square
Right,
feet.
right, right.
Um,
But is that 1,500 square feet footprint, or is that living space?
Well, right, I mean, we'd have to look at their
Yeah.
language, but I think the intent there is to be more flexible, and make it more attractive, I think. I mean, I'm a little concerned. Lyme's ADU, detached ADU language allows a max of 750 square feet.
That's living space,
Probably.
It is.
I think.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not footprint, it's not like 750 basement, 750,
Right,
First
let's say,
floor.
so
750 of living
if
space.
you put a single-story house that is a footprint of 750 square feet, put a basement in with all your utilities, that's perfectly fine, because, your basement is not counted as living
it's
space.
not living space.
If
Ever?
you, well, as long as you're not putting in like a bedroom downstairs, then, but if you're using it as a utility area,
Right.
um,
So that seems like a little slippery slope.
Well, you have to have egress from the basement for a bedroom, so.
Yeah, but that's easy, you just do one of those stepped windows.
but again, I have to do a permit for it, and if you come to me for a permit to put a extra bedroom in your basement, and I know that it's an ADU, I'm gonna say no.
So does that ever get tracked down at the time of sale? When the Realtor is listing it, or comes
You mean
back to
people who
the
have cheated on this?
people who've converted their basements, or would convert their basement and they,
It would get caught next time the tax assessor goes through,
but then what happens?
So nobody lets them in, so.
yeah. Again, it's one of those things that, we try to catch what we can, and, they're just, I can't go knocking on every door and,
Yeah,
But if it was to be sold and listed,
Yeah, if
not
it's-
just a private sale,
yeah.
private sale would completely bypass it.
right.
But a listing sale would have to be permitted.
But if they're putting in a new bedroom, then they'd have to get a building permit from you.
Right. And most
But-
likely
But
increase the
do
septic
people-
But there are
size.
I'm in the
probably
woods,
some
are you
that
gonna notice?
don't do that.
Right.
And a garage doesn't count towards living space, does it?
No.
Okay.
So an ADU can have a garage?
Yes.
Wow. Really going down the rabbit hole.
Attached, yeah, right, attached to the ADU.
So any comments on, I picked up just a few little, typos, but I thought Nat's stuff was great.
I think that what that brings up is the question as to whether or not we would want to do a process like that and
Yeah,
hire somebody, so that is just like an outstanding question.
Do we intend to solicit community input before we? The thing that troubles me a little bit about some of this is that I think there's a sense on this board that we ought to expand housing. And maybe we ought to, but, and I'm
Right.
sure all of us individually have views about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seems to me that our job as a committee here is not to express our views in proposed changes, but rather to reflect the views of the community. And I mean, it's interesting to see what these other towns have done, and how they felt and what they decided, but it seems to me at least that before we head in one direction or another, that there ought to be some, a survey or some sort of a vote at town meeting or a public hearing, something where it's not just us deciding what to do, but
Well,
rather it's the
I
community.
think that's why we had the public, these things were all public, and the people who came were very interested in a lot of this.
But-
And I think that time after time, the point has been made that you have to have community involvement, engagement
Yeah,
before
but
you go
these
forward.
hearings haven't solicited public input in.
No, I mean, we're still at the information
Yeah, yeah,
gathering stage,
yeah.
and the key point is you have to have strong involvement of the community.
I think there are kind of two ways of going about that, is you can go out and say, tell us what you think, and have, people give you every opinion they have, or you can do a proposal and send that out to the public and say, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And solicit input, and then you're gonna direct that input on what you have proposed, you're not gonna get input, or as much input that kind of goes off in all directions.
Yeah, but here, to begin with, there's sort of a binary choice.
Yeah,
It'd just be nice to have some kind of direction
direction to
from
go
the.
yes or no.
I know, there are a couple people I know of in the town of Lyme who, if you ask them, would say, I don't think we should have any more housing, I like the town just the way it is.
Right.
I suspect that's a minority view, but I don't know, and I don't,
There's a lot of in the Valley News, a lot of pushback down in Vermont about that. Same thing, a lot of people are saying in these towns in Vermont, well, we don't want we don't want all this stuff.
I think when we get to that stage, I think what we're probably gonna want to do is be very concrete about maybe telling the sandwich story of a town that's similar to us, and this is how they went about dealing with these different issues, and this is a scenario that we've we're thinking about for Lyme, and we want to hear what others think about that. I mean, I think we need this in order to be concrete about the ideas that go out, because otherwise, if you say, tell us what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, I think,
Yeah,
I think the devil is also gonna be in the details, I mean, in terms of, yeah.
sure, but.
And what kind, do we want growth, first of all, and then what kind of growth do we want,
Yeah.
if any?
I'm all for concrete, but I don't wanna
Yeah.
ask the question I don't wanna ask the question in a form that's like, do you think we ought to double in size or triple in size?
Oh, no.
You know, I
Yeah.
think we ought to give people the ability to sort of, if there are people who, if there's a majority of people who feel like, I don't wanna see Lyme grow, the reason I like living here is because it's the way it is, and I don't want it, I don't want a greatly expanded housing supply. We ought to know that before we dive into this stuff too deeply.
Right.
So you're thinking of a survey, I mean, come up with some kind of.
I don't know, like
survey.
what we did with the solar, or, I mean, there's a bunch of ways you could get community input, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably too late for town meeting to raise this as a discussion
Right.
point, but certainly we could do a survey, or we could have a hearing where we say we wanna get, the planning board is considering, making changes to our zoning rules that would facilitate growth in the housing supply, and we wanna get town input before we pursue this and make sure that this is something the town, I don't
yeah, it's
have
gonna
a
have to
stake
be,
in
I
how we
think.
do it,
I
but we
think-
ought to
Yeah.
do something,
I think that the problem with a hearing is you don't get that many people, so you don't really get I mean, a survey is the only way to get a lot of input, I think.
I think we have to be very clear, though,
Mhm.
none of us wanna change the character of the town, really. Well, I think what I've gotten time and again is we're talking about infill and small modifications to allow modest expansion
Right.
within the spirit of the town itself. We're not talking about putting a 500-unit apartment complex down on East Thetford Road.
Right. So I'm gonna offer a couple concrete thoughts. One, I think it is important to involve the town, get feedback from the town. I don't think that's a particularly strong point of this board. I mean, when I think about when we did the solar array survey, it took us months to put that together.
Mhm.
And then the results started coming back and it's like, boy, I wish I'd asked this question better. And so, I'm gonna suggest, maybe we should think about engaging a consultant to do some of this work. Give them a definite, a charge to say, we want to attract attention. I'd like you to help with our publicity to get people to come to offer this. I think the other thing we could say is, we don't want to change the character of the town. What options are there that other towns have used successfully to say, oh yeah, you know, infill is spectacular, has its drawbacks, it has its hurdles. Are there other things to be done? And give people concrete proposals, maybe even saying, well, what about Wilmot? You know, if you drove down the Wilmot Main Street, this is a way of doing things. There's other things to offer concrete proposals. We'd have to spend money, but I think it would happen a lot faster. I think we would get a better result from it because these guys, these professionals think about this all the time. And, for all the failings of the consultants that we got for the Lyme Community Development Committee, they did a really good job of pulling a campaign together to get people to come, to offer the opinion, to talk about it. And so, I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know what it would cost. I don't know who we talked to, but, I mean, well, Sandwich Mints in Barrett has
Mhm.
spectacular,
Yeah, and they got one of those
hop grant.
HOP grants.
And, maybe.
Who knows where the grant funding stands at this point? We know where the federal
Well,
stuff
I'm
is.
sure there's no problem with grant funding today. But, I mean, we could talk to them and say, I don't know, well, Dave, I don't know, could we scare up $2,000 to have somebody do something?
You're not gonna get anything for
Yeah,
2,000.
you're not.
It would be at least
We can't
30,
even do the
40.
mailing for 2,000, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, literally, it cost me $1,000 to do the survey mailing.
Right.
Okay.
Sandwich got
Good to know.
$32,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
I was just
Yeah.
saying that number, but, and
We don't have a spare 30 grand in the budget right now.
no, I know that, I'm very aware of that, yeah.
I'm not even sure that people would support that,
Support.
$30,000
Oh.
for a study like that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure they would.
but yeah, before I went out and got a $30,000 grant for something, I mean, I think it is absolutely interesting to say, what does the town think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were to get free money, that's one thing, but I don't
Mhm.
think an appropriation's gonna happen.
Oh, no, I wouldn't think so.
Sometimes in my experience, consultants can be great and they can really help you, but that has not been my universal experience.
Often they come in and then you do all the work and they run it
Well,
up.
and beyond that, people get automatically offended by outside people
Mhm.
suggesting what should be done in our community, and,
Right.
so it really goes both ways.
Well, I'm not, in this initial question, I'm not specifically asking them to make recommendations, I'm asking them to tell about things because of their knowledge of the environment and the various towns.
Well, they come from Massachusetts, Barrett,
Okay, I mean, I'm not pumping for Barrett, I'm just saying, somebody that knows,
Well, the regional
Discuss.
planning commission knows the
Well-
local communities, and if we wanted to have somebody else tell us what other people are doing, they're the people that,
can,
would be able to do
I,
that.
that's half of it. The other half is can they run a marketing campaign to get people to come to this meeting? That's,
Unless they're giving away food or money, I doubt it, so
Well,
it's
I mean,
us
drinks.
talking
it's
to
all
our
about
neighbors.
cookies, but,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but the LCDC had a big turnout, there were 60-ish people.
Well, what was being proposed? Rezoning Route 10 for commercial. I mean, that was the impetus for that group, getting together and then going into study.
Oh, that's not at all what I thought it was, but that,
Well, that's
but be that as may,
what I remember.
that,
Of course, of
that
course.
group
I needed,
put together a nice marketing campaign, they had posters, they had this, they had messages that went out, and we didn't have to do the work. I mean, that was an attractive aspect of it. And
Was
so,
it LCDC?
Lyme Community Development Committee,
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
and, I mean,
And those consultants spewed back exactly what I told them.
what's
that's
that?
what I'm saying,
The-
they come in,
Yeah,
you
the-
do the work,
Well,
They
don't
and then they
know.
tell you what
spewed
they.
back at all the information that they asked me and I gave them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing that, the one thing that an element of what Rich said to which I'm sympathetic is that when we formulated our questions for the solar and then got responses, in retrospect, it seemed to me that in some ways, our questions weren't artfully formulated. And so maybe somebody who has expertise in this stuff might be able to help us. If we decide to do a survey, maybe there's a way to get some guidance or some.
Specific to a survey.
Well, we have survey researchers, John Campbell and Kathy Sher do that. I mean, that was their thing.
Interesting. Ah.
They're retired now.
Kathy's husband, right?
Yeah, John, yeah, Campbell.
So in lieu of hiring a consultant though, maybe we could
Buy
reach
them
out to
cookies.
somebody like that
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
retired
would you be,
professionals,
would
yeah.
you be willing to,
Yep.
we're gonna take a stab at drafting some questions to
Yep.
get community input on this issue.
Yep.
Would you be willing to look it over and
Yep.
give us your thoughts and suggestions?
Yep.
We could also see if other towns have done this. I bet, are there any surveys that are out there?
Well, what do we
Well-
wanna ask? I mean, that's the whole other
Oh,
thing.
but you see, I'm not just talking about the specifics of the question, it's the
Mhm.
form of the question.
Mhm.
If you can have a question that gets the answer that you want, if you can clone that and ask a different question, you make sure that you can code it and the language is parallel
Mm,
to tap into the same, that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
I see.
We got into trouble, I think, a little bit on our solar survey with formats of questions that people then blew out the edges because they didn't like it, they wanted to answer different, give us different answers.
Well, I'm sure that the housing opportunity grant towns, if they did survey work, that all those are available for public viewing.
Right. You know, I think one of the problems with the solar survey was we didn't, at least my opinion was, we didn't give enough information.
It
on
was
the
very
questions,
hard.
Because people didn't
Right,
have the
'cause we were just
background.
one page.
They didn't know, well, they didn't
And you did a
know how to
great job
answer because they
making
didn't
it
have
look
any.
beautiful. I mean, we have somebody who can do that.
I
They
can
didn't have
format
any-
things,
Yes.
but it's very hard to develop the knowledge needed to answer questions intelligently.
Well, that's what I mean, they didn't have any background for the
But
question,
you
they didn't
can't-
know what, you know, what.
But you
it's
can't
gonna
make
mean,
people
so-
get invested in these things.
No, but I mean, in the survey, you can
Mhm.
put that in the question, you can say, this will happen, this would be.
Well, the other page I thought was informative, that
Yeah.
people weren't cold, you know, it wasn't a cold call, they read the other page,
Right.
so we did give
Yeah,
them some.
well, some, but I
some
think there was
background.
a lot of.
Just out of curiosity, have we had any increase in solar applications or,
A huge decrease.
yeah, and that's,
Ah, interesting. Do you think it's regulatorily driven, or is it just nobody wants to do it this week?
I think all the early adopters have bought into it.
Well, and if you have community power, it's, you know,
Right.
it's a lot of like $10 a month increase to get to a $15,000 or $25,000 system. So you might as well just buy green power.
I mean, that's, you know, I'm in Vermont, but, my last electric bill was $160. And, you know, I'm running grow lights downstairs in my basement, and so they're taking on a lot of power. But at $160 a month at max, it's gonna take me a lot of years to recoup
That's right.
it's gonna be about a $25,000 investment for me to put solar at my house.
Right.
And I just can't get
Right.
the numbers to work out.
But they don't work out.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
I
been in two
have,
systems that I knew weren't gonna work out, but there weren't options, you know, when, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
my sister lives in DC, they have huge incentives down there, and they put in a $50,000 system on their roof with a 3-year payback on it.
How many?
3 years.
Wow,
How do they do
Wow.
that?
subsidy.
Subsidies,
Not
from,
too big.
Oh, you
Big
mean
federal
the-
income tax checks you write?
well, no, this is, DC,
No, it's the power company.
the
that's
power companies are, they
subsidizing it.
want to have solar in DC, there's, you know, tons of roofs there.
It's cheaper to develop solar than it is to develop a power plant.
Right.
And so they're huge incentives. They get about a $400 a month check back from the power company.
Cool, that's great. Wow.
So they still have to put the 50,000 out.
Yep.
Mhm.
They have to pay that, but then they just get a lot of that.
$100 a month.
Yeah, they borrowed the money. They actually had a friend who said, hey, I'll lend it to you at whatever the prime rate is or when we sign the deal. And
Yeah.
you know, it's a 3-year payback on a $50,000 loan. That's,
And then. I
it is
think-
worth it.
I think the rest of the time it's cash, is free money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we
So-
got down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We only got through now 2, so we should get on to,
Yeah, what was
Jonas.
the third one?
Jonah,
Jonah, yeah.
Jonah.
Jonah,
Jonah.
Gorgona.
Yeah, I went through the video and I just tried to pick out important things that he said.
Right, and these were really good points, Tim.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Jonah's interested, he's doing it, you know,
Well,
of course, his,
Exactly.
and his thing, he says, well, the zoning's not the problem, it's just you need somebody that wants to do it and has the money, get the money, basically. Of course, he's in Vermont, and in a perfect situation, because Fairleigh has a lot of rundown, you know,
Right.
fairly inexpensive buildings that he can buy and redo into it, right?
Well, he's also, you know, he's using family property in the Fairleigh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
That's-
I think he bought a lot, a couple of lots though.
Yeah,
But,
Well, the
but
family bought.
in fact, Tim, he did say that zoning limitations, the minimum lot sizes and setbacks
Well, that's
are
true,
important
right, right,
factors.
right.
So, I mean, you know, zoning, I think, is a concern. I know his blog years and years ago he was arm wrestling with the zoning board because the eaves on his building were a foot too wide or some horrible thing, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that they were saying, well, you can't do it then, and it's like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to spend my own money to make the town better. But I think that this is a good summary.
I think, I don't know whether he said it in this or maybe it was in his blog, but he did say that the lack of zoning has not, in Orford, has not
Oh,
That's right.
Yes.
increased the stock of housing
right.
in Orford, which is most definitely in the Dartmouth, Hanover housing
Yes.
market area, so.
What is the scoop with Orford?
Well, one thing about Orford is this, nobody wants to get their kids there for school, so that's, you know, the
When I
opposite
send my
of
kid
law.
through that school, I don't blame them at all.
Yeah.
So that's a huge factor in Orford, just that nobody's moving in there with kids, so it's, or very few people.
There's plenty of people who live in Lyme though who don't make, even with kids who don't, you know, use Crossroads or other it isn't the case that everyone with kids in Lyme uses the Lyme schools.
Right.
Maybe in high school more, maybe the ability to opt into Hanover High.
Right. But,
And
yeah.
does the town still pay tuition to St. Johnsbury Academy and
Yep.
stuff?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. If they wanna
but
go there.
not to Berg Mountain.
So,
The ski school?
All right.
Hmm.
Michaela Schiffman's parents were really mad at the town because they didn't pay for a center there. But yeah, Orford is just so interesting, because I mean, we pay taxes in both towns, and I used to live in Orford
Wow.
for 7 years, so
Mhm.
I know a lot of people there. But it's just an interesting, it's sort of the opposite of Lyme.
So,
Well, as far as their whole outlook on, no zoning whatsoever. But actually, there is a proposal right there, when you come into town, sort of just past the fire station on the left, there's that building that used to be the church, and now,
oh,
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
Martha Devold used to own it.
Had greeting cards and things.
Yeah, anyway, in that field right there, they're
Mhm.
proposing 14 units.
Huh?
Somebody wants to build 14 units right there.
The best thing they could do is turn the old high school into housing,
Yeah.
that nice
It'd be
brick
great
building.
senior housing.
Absolutely.
I think they looked at that.
Yeah, they did across from Metro, with Twin Pines.
Mhm.
I understood there was some concern that they might not like the people that moved into that or something.
Well,
I don't know.
That's
I
what-
don't know the story
well, I think
for
what
it.
happened.
One resident told me
uh-huh.
that it was shot down because the type of people that are gonna live here are not the kind of people we want in Orford.
Aha, okay.
Old people.
No, it wasn't senior housing, it was for
I want the people that had the
You know,
high-speed chase on
low-income
Archertown
housing.
Road today.
There was.
Yeah, 85 miles an hour max.
Well, that's all recently redone.
Wait, what were you saying?
There was a high-speed chase through Orford today.
in the snow.
Yeah,
On Orchard. Orchard Road, you see.
they got away. They got to Bridge Street there and got into Vermont and got away.
Really? Who was chasing?
Well, it started in Wentworth, so it was Wentworth,
Oh, jeez.
Tony Sweat went up, the Orford chief, the Piermont chief,
Jeez,
And he still got away.
they still got away.
the driving was terrible today.
And nobody totaled their police cruisers or anything like that?
No, I
That's
believe
good.
the truck that did hit somebody else on Archertown Road, but
Oh.
Great.
So let's keep moving, not go down more rabbit holes here. So we have that one, and then, I think Rich's may have been
Yeah, I
in a little
I
different
apologize that I
format.
sent this so late, but,
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read it.
yeah. And if you could take a minute to read it, or I could. I have copies if anybody wants.
So this was just in the body of your email, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, then, of course, the Orford case here.
Well,
There is no zoning.
yeah, okay,
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Orford
so-
does have some zoning, they have a floodplain ordinance.
yeah, sure. And I'm sure there's a bunch of it that's in floodplain, and so, I mean, that's.
25? as you go up
Oh.
towards,
Yeah,
Orfordville.
Orfordville's got a lot of flood.
that's all those houses are built on floodplains.
Interesting, okay.
Because
So
of that little creek right there that runs along.
Yeah,
the
that
side.
floods periodically and floods those houses up.
that would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
No,
Well, washed out the road,
So,
that was the,
Right, I remember that, was it?
yeah, wasn't that,
5 years
yeah,
ago?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, some of the comments I guess I have in
So
these
you
are-
actually editorialized quite a bit in your write-up.
in
I was
fact,
gonna say, it's
yeah.
more
It's not what they
editorial
said,
than.
It's
Yeah.
like what you get from what they said.
Right. And I still think that that's a,
Well, those are Rich's ideas that come out of it.
Those weren't with the speaker's
Yeah,
ideas.
They did not say
All
those
right.
things, yeah.
I could come back to provide a more point-by-point description of certainly what, certainly what Jamie talked about was, there's a lot of discussion of, you know, what's the price point on units and all. And I think, that's interesting, but it's not anything that the planning board has any control over, and so,
Mhm.
you know, I'd like to, I think it's fair for us to lament the difficulties of building housing, high costs of everything. Are there things that we can do? And I think what I'm hearing today is people are saying, maybe, but let's find out what the town wants to do. And so, you know, I don't think anybody will be surprised by some of the editorializing that I've done here. But how can we ask the town what we want? Do we want to engage somebody to help us write something? Do we want to?
well, I think we need to, this is now, 4 or 5 statements of fact, essentially.
Right.
We need to turn this into a story,
Mhm.
a narrative of some kind that kind of pulls the common threads, which I think we can see quite clearly there's some common threads.
Yeah, we can either do that, or we can just state the facts and leave it there, and then as a group decide where we're gonna go next, but
You know,
I
a lot
was-
of this is problem statement, and then some of it's case study. So that's essentially what I see.
Okay.
And the suggestions that planning board members have from what they heard
Yeah,
is
that's-
something else,
That's
so-
gotta be left off at the beginning.
Right,
Sure.
it doesn't need to get
'cause
trashed, but.
personally, I'd rather see us come up with a statement of facts of what we learned, not have the editorializing. We'll put this aside so that we know we did this, we can go back and, we don't have to go looking at the tapes, we can read this, and
Right.
others who missed some of this can look at this and say, well, these are kind of the bullet points of what the speakers talked about. But then, yes, we do need to figure out where and how we go
And
next
so.
to get input from the town and also decide how we're gonna shape that. I mean, I suspect that doing nothing and just allowing organic growth would probably be good with a lot of people.
Well, there hasn't
But-
been any, that's part of the problem.
Well, Brian has done organic growth, I would say.
And we've had quite a few new houses in Lyme recently.
Not
What's that?
according to the state.
Well, go drive around.
So-
I'm
so-
just saying how many building permits have been in the last 5 years.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I have, in my neighborhood, there've been 4 new homes. You know, the
Right.
cash market, the house that went with that, I mean, those all got totally renovated, sold.
But
I've got
those were houses, that was
Well,
residential
but-
before.
It was on, they were vacant for a while, because Cynthia couldn't take care of them, but they got fixed up, and then the McLaughlin
Right.
above my house, and then there's that other one from those people from Connecticut. So, you know.
There's one on the river, there's one down the
Well-
river too,
There's one right back up here.
yeah. There's,
Well, I'm just saying, you know, on the place where I kind of walk, you know, 5-minute walk from my house, there's 4. So I know that, and that's in 10 years.
Well, just
So-
last year, there were 2 ADUs, you know, just in a mile from our houses.
Boland's and which one's, what's the other one?
The one opposite Whipple, or Washburn Hill, I think.
Is it that green?
Oh, Lopez.
Yeah, Lopez has
Lopez.
one.
Yeah.
Brett Ryan did one at his, where the garage used to be.
Yeah.
There's an ADU in there.
Where did its garage used to be?
I'm trying to think of the.
Maxfield's.
Maxfield,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Well, that's
Those
commercial.
are 5 years.
So
but
the
that was the
upstairs
first-
now is the residence.
And then he has an ADU at 750
There's a
square foot, 8.
Separate building.
I see.
And then I'm working on one right now on Christine Brown's property.
Where's that?
Right,
Route 10 and Washburn.
Bottom of
Yeah,
Washburn
Matt
Hill.
Brown's mother.
Matt Brown's mother, bottom of Washburn Hill on Route 10,
Is it
on
the
the north
old,
side.
old,
Cape.
really old cape
Yep.
with plastic around the
Right,
foundation?
yeah.
Okay.
David, who's putting that new house on the river beyond the East Clifford Bridge away? It's like quite a ways down there on the right. It's been going on for a while. It's a new house being.
Oh, yeah, it used to be a garage or something, it's south of the corner, so it's River Road South, and it's on the east side of the road, and it was a structure that was there. And then you saw, like, on the siding that they, you know, spray painted where the windows were gonna go, and the guys started working on it at the end of the summer.
It doesn't ring a bell.
But
I've
there's
never-
one on the river side too,
Well,
west side,
there's,
new house.
at the bottom of, you know, Maple
Yep,
and then River Road, there was a brick house there that got torn down and replaced. And there was a
Very
mobile home
slowly,
that
yeah.
was,
Yeah, the brick house
Trash.
was, that's,
but, see, it's not creating new, it's
Mm.
replacing,
But beyond that, another mile or two is a new house on the river.
on the north
Really?
side,
On the west side, on the river side,
But north or south?
sort of,
South.
south of Maple.
Yeah, like another mile or so down there, at least. There's a new house being built in
is it in Lyme?
there. Yeah, pretty positive.
Hmm.
Anyway, next time I'm down there, I'll look and.
Yeah, give me an address to
Maybe
that.
they forgot to get a builder.
Oh, probably not, but I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll look again.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
be that as it may, I mean, yeah, there is some growth. I mean, and David's got the statistics.
Right.
The thing is,
But-
what, it's, you know, it's like tear down and replace in several instances though, so it's not creating,
Well, I've got 2 new ones
you
in my
have to,
neighborhood,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
But I mean, that's good, I'm glad, but they're,
yeah, and I think,
but it's not, there's no diversity in the housing, it's all expensive stuff.
right.
well, that's how I don't know, I mean, I just look at what was done, I mean, it's really expensive, the Cash Market and the one next to it,
Yeah.
because of the nature of the owner and, you know, what needed to be done, I mean, those places, I mean, I looked at that, cause I, you know, thought it'd be a great place for my mom to live up the street from me, but it's like, no septic, and it was not, you know, that was
Well, and
expensive.
Postage
Yeah.
stamp size lot.
Right, right, and then, but the other 2 houses, I mean, you know, they're brand new and they're really, really expensive, both of them.
Why do you think they're expensive?
Well, one of them is huge. I mean, these
Right.
people said they wanted to downsize and, you know, they're, yeah, it's smaller than the old house, the Hermitage, but it's huge.
Oh, the Nightlight, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if they wanted to downsize, but they just wanted to.
well, they've got 3 kids
Right,
and, you know,
that's
so
right.
but that's a big house. And
Mhm.
the other one is, their kids in there too, and, they're both really big.
And one that just up here on
Mhm.
Spring Hill, not Spring Hill, whatever the private road there.
The Creamery Road?
No, Creameries are this one, it's this one, right up.
Yeah, it's where the pastor
Oh,
used to live up there.
Yeah, but
Spring Hill or Rocky?
It's not, no, I think it's Spring Hill, because Rocky,
Yeah, Spring Hill.
there's one, like, if you stand in the parking lot, you can see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, that was $500,000, and it's just a box.
Well, $500,000 is
Well,
not
what,
that expensive.
what Rusty put in was $500,000, you know,
Was it really?
manufactured housing. by the time he got done there.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Which one?
Next to their Estes and Gallup offices?
Those
No,
right
right,
across
right
out here.
across the street, over here. Right
Oh,
on-
Rusty Keith.
Yeah.
Yes, Rusty
Oh, I
Keith.
think the
Oh.
rest of it,
Yeah, Rusty Keith.
Why did that house get oriented the way it is?
Because he's intending to put some more on that lot, and so he has an orientation for everything
Mhm.
for his eventual plans.
He wasn't gonna be able, I think we asked him that when he came in. I think it had to do with setbacks or something.
Setbacks and making room for a shared leach field.
That's right.
yeah. Yeah, he'd like to buy that other piece, but.
Well, it just seems like you could have oriented it toward the road, even, you know, even if you were making.
Well, you see,
setbacks.
you've gotta keep the driveway as short as possible because it counts for lot coverage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whatever.
David, would you be able to give us a notion of how many new houses or whatever have been made in the last, I don't know, 3 years?
Didn't we give
You
it?
Yeah,
did-
gave a
You
list.
did it once, yeah.
Not long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might,
It's
it
over
might
the
be
past
helpful
10
to
years.
update it for 2024 to include
Yeah, I can-
2024, but that would
It
be
would be
helpful.
good, it would be good to understand which ones are actually new construction, and which ones are, you know, refurbishing.
Well, I mean, there are those two, and then
I don't-
down on Preston, there's a new house, and, but not in the past 10 years, but the past 15.
The horse barn?
No, not the horse barn, the one below that.
Yeah, at the
It's
very
a
bottom.
modern house.
There's a.
Oh, yeah.
That's, might be, that's not that, that's newer, that's 5 years, I think.
5 years, okay, well, then,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
that's
it was-
another one, just.
It was an $850,000 house when they built it. And then Steve Maker, right above,
Mm-hmm,
remodeled that.
mm-hmm.
I'm working on a permit now for one out, it's one of the SD properties that has not had a house on it.
Mhm.
It's the first loop, I never can remember the names of the roads out
This
there.
is Culver Hill?
Might be Clover.
Culver Hill's the first one,
Yeah, the-
Clover Mill's the second one.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna be out, I believe it's out that way, basically out behind,
Kevin Sars,
out near where Kevin started, where Dave Russ, it'd be out behind his
Yeah.
new house.
Well, he
That's a
built-
new house.
David Russ built that new house, yeah.
Yep.
Is that the guy up on the hill? You can
Yeah.
see really easily now that the tornadoes.
Yeah,
Well, that, I think was Kevin Sar's house, or it might have been
yeah. No, it was
David,
David Russ.
oh, it's David Russ's old house.
Dave Russ's house. Got
His
it.
house sits down between the road and that one.
Oh,
Then he built
okay.
a new house, so.
Yeah, and then there's the one up
Yeah,
on the
but it'll
hill.
be-
There was a container right there at the road. for a
Yeah,
long
what was
time.
that about for so long?
Just storing and,
Yeah, I know, but no, not everybody can have a container out there just, you know, just storing.
it's a very gray area in the zoning.
What's the scoop with lime green heat? How are they allowed to be there?
Pre-existing non-conforming.
Huh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when, lime, they came in,
They came in and got
Lime-
houses.
lime green heat came in though after '89. It was
But it was
No,
still,
it's been
No, cause it's
commercial.
Morty Senior had a,
Morty lived
business
up in
there.
there,
yeah, he had a business
He had a
running there
business
since
there.
before zoning.
but it wasn't as massive.
no,
No.
Anyway,
So, let's see if we can come to some sort of conclusion on this. Rich, do you think you could make another
Sure.
stab at being more objective on what the
Okay, yes.
notes are, and then, I don't know, I mean, I'm kinda anxious to maybe just put this to bed, and then for us to answer Dave's question, and, how are we going to
I
come to some fruition
Here's me.
and have a discussion that.
should have my
not
head
maybe-
examined. Do you want me to try to put it together in one document?
If you want your head examined, sure.
That's what I'm, you know.
Wow.
It's,
So
it's,
just
it's
take
kind of
pieces
an
of each.
analysis, synthesis of the facts
Mhm.
and try to find common
Oh,
themes.
so you go like this?
Yes.
And our purpose for putting this
Oh.
together is just to have a record of
Just to
what-
have a record, yeah.
And to have something to hand people, you know, like, we did this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of like them being separate document, or separate you know, what this speaker talked about, what this speaker talked about, like
Sure.
that. But if you wanted to
Well, but-
try to make
they didn't talk about the same thing, so that would, I think, naturally happen, that you would have a
Right.
section from this person and a section from this person. But then, if two people talked about the same thing, you could say, you could put those next to each other, annotated with who it came from. So you would
Hmm.
see,
That seems like a lot of work. I mean, it's work for you, but then it's gonna be work for us to discuss it and agree on it. I don't know what.
Well,
other
it's nice
people
to, I
think.
think, have a record, and if it sounds like one person is the author, that might make it more palatable to the reader, is, you know.
Yep,
I mean, the diversity is good, because it comes from all different people on this board, but it might be a better record if it was same
I mean, we'd
voice.
have these as the referring, you know,
Yeah,
reference
yeah,
documents.
yeah, yeah.
I just think it's sort of hard to read all these different pieces.
it is, it's 8 pages.
Yeah.
Well, they're, you know, I mean, why not?
Okay.
No, but, you know, and then I would also like everyone to start thinking, well, what would we ask the town? And, you know,
That's David's.
that's David's
yes,
question,
yeah.
and so.
You're not pointing at Rich.
No.
No, I mean, and
No,
Rich
what would we ask
talked
the
about
town,
David's question, I'm
and-
just,
And then if we got questions that we thought, you know, then we can always pass them on, hopefully to John and Kathy to take a look at, to make sure we're not asking something that's gonna be answered in a way we don't want.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be interesting to see what communities that got HOP grants and did a survey.
Yep.
I don't know how we,
Hop grant surveys.
But I don't think
Google.
that, you know.
and
that
and
we
they may
wanna-
not apply to us, I
I
mean,
mean,
we're.
I think what we
fairly
wanna ask
rural.
is about general things, and remember we started this maybe 3 years ago, writing up some goals and strategies.
Yes,
And then wanting to give those to the people to say, is this an appropriate goal for a Lyme? And, you know, that may not be a bad way, I mean, we did some work, I think there were 5 or 6 goals, and you might wanna try to
I
throw
think that
them.
was perhaps before I was around.
No, you're
No,
No,
no, you
you're-
were here, you were here, yeah.
I'm not remembering.
this was
that.
like just a year ago or so.
You said
It was
3 or
probably more
3 or
than that,
4.
but
I
yeah,
think it's
right.
more, cause we got involved in the solar,
But it was after the solar.
Was
we
it
Yeah,
started.
is that for the solar?
Yeah.
I wanna say it was last summer.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay, well, I can, you know, and so I don't think, I mean, for us, you don't even remember, which is, that's good, you get rid of some fresh eyes.
we're all suffering from CRS, can't remember anything.
So we
But
had
I
draft-
think that
okay,
does go-
Oh my gosh, it was 2024, July 5th.
There you go.
Wasn't
Boy,
that far
never throw
away.
things away.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had, yeah,
Right.
and we have 7 goals, so, you
Oh
know,
my goodness,
you
David
know,
found it.
so.
I get 6 of them.
Maybe we act, I mean, this might be not the most current version.
I may
No,
not.
that's April 17th.
Yeah, so I got July 25th.
See,
Well, anyway, that,
Oh, yes, I remember now.
yeah, and so, and the strategies were there as, you know, mainly, and then we had some editorial stuff also. So, but the main thing is to try to get are these goals the ones that the town shares? And, you know, we gotta, like David said, we need to see what the, you know, if the town votes no on, you know, or we get strong opposition, let's then forget that.
Right.
There's your new housing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's broken down into new dwellings and then,
Conversions.
Conversions, ADUs.
so it's
so-
conversions, tear downs or?
No,
or
conversions would be taking an existing building.
Oh, and putting multiple units in it.
Yeah, putting
Okay.
units.
And the new dwellings, does that count tear downs, or is that?
No, that does not count tear
Okay,
downs.
so it's a net
Yeah, increase.
plus. And what about just tear downs with no replacement?
I don't really track those, easy way, I consider it just a renovation.
No, I'm sorry, no replacement, so
Oh.
you tear it down and there's nothing there anymore.
Those I did not track, or I can track them, I don't have,
Okay.
How would you count Rusty's place here where he tore down something and put a new thing in?
I would consider it just a renovation, that it's it's the same size.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm wondering, like,
It
are
doesn't
they
show
really
up on this,
new?
it doesn't show up.
No, it would not show up on
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
see, and that's probably a number we need
Yeah.
to know about, because we're not really increasing the,
So could I ask you guys to do a little bit of work to get the goals and all the statements? And Rich, you update yours with facts? Because if you want this done when is our next meeting?
Not next week, but the week after, in 2
so
weeks.
do you want me to find the most recent draft that I have of that?
That would be
Okay, yeah,
very
Yeah.
excellent.
probably I have that on my computer somewhere, yep.
And then I'll
That was
just,
3 or 4 years ago, guys. July 24, right?
Yeah.
well, it's all a blur.
I knew it happened at least.
Considering the last month seems like about 2 years.
I remember it, yes.
I'm sure if I look at it, I'll go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's the next meeting?
So the next meeting is the 11th of March.
Not the 13th.
Oh, that's,
No, I'm on the wrong,
yeah.
it's a
Isn't it
Thursday,
town
it's the
meeting?
13th.
Yeah, town meeting.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, they
That's the school
scheduled,
meeting?
no, they scheduled my, other eye on the March 13th.
You'll have to change it, Tim.
And I didn't, I knew it was the 13th, but I just looked recently to see what day of the week it was, and it's like, oh, I don't know how they, anyway, they hit it again. I don't know how they say it, I don't know how they say it.
They have
now.
surgery days, each.
Yeah.
Yeah,
each
well, this
op-
is, a long time ago they said it, but I don't have any say in it, so.
That's okay, I don't think we're gonna make any firm
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
So, and we can always send you the stuff, and you can send in your comments before
All the
meeting.
development shall occur on, what's the number of your house on River Road?
Right.
Well, this is all
Forest Society
conserved.
might have
Yeah,
something to say
yeah.
about that. Yeah, both my eyes were scheduled on 2 planning board
Thursday. Well, maybe
days.
that's the only day the guys in the
Yeah.
It
office.
is, I mean, that's what happens, they have a surgery day and then
Yeah.
they do back to back to back cataracts.
So, you're gonna, for that date, you're gonna try that, okay?
Okay,
And
well,
then,
I'll send out what I have, but do you want me to abbreviate it just to be the goals, not the strategies and the
Sure.
extraneous stuff?
Well,
Send me
No, send
everything.
the whole thing.
let's
Okay.
see the
All
whole
right,
thing,
all
but,
right. All right, but, okay, that's fine, we'll just update everybody with the whole thing.
but we may end up only using the goals.
We don't
if-
want to
if-
share all that other stuff with the people.
Yeah.
No,
We just wanna know, are we going in the right direction with these visions for our housing chapter? We're not even
Yeah.
saying for zoning, this is.
History is important, so putting
Yeah.
everything in context will be helpful as I'm working my way through.
Okay,
And I'm just gonna take all the pieces and try to,
okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so it's 8:30.
Yep.
We had one other item on the
Ask them to
agenda,
send me those things.
which I think we should
Send me
probably
email,
hold
just
off
to-
on at this point, which was to talk about zoning
Oh, no,
ordinance
no.
2026 update, so I think that's another issue for another night.
There were so many rabbit holes in that field.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I see.
It's a
in
prairie
this-
dog field.
In the upcoming year is that we should probably, if we're gonna make progress on both, we should probably do one housing meeting a month and one zoning meeting a month. Because they both are big projects and they're never, you know, yeah, they're both big projects.
That's
And
an
at some point, we're gonna just
interesting
have to
note.
work on the zoning because we have the deadlines to,
Yeah.
have to get them ready for next time.
I like that idea of doing, switching.
I think that would be great.
Yeah,
So if you like one topic and you don't like the other, just don't come every other week.
right.
So do you want me to, do housing for next meeting, just because you're.
We have a little bit of momentum, yeah.
And then after that, so that
The
I-
zoning.
the zoning,
I just think if we can have a
Yeah,
shared understanding
yeah,
from this, that'll.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that. Terrific.
Okay.
Well, Anybody
Motion
want
to
to
adjourn?
make a motion? We're adjourned.
So you got that thing I sent you with John?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did you make any syrup? Yeah?
No, I've got a couple